Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Begin with a moment of silent prayer and the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a quorum. Supervisor Gallant, Supervisor McCune, Supervisor Schleif, Supervisor Byrd are excused. So everybody knows Jim had a fall yesterday and broke his wrist. I don't know how bad it is, but maybe keep him in your prayers for that. The affidavit of posting. This is a meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. Prior to this meeting, public notice was given by posting a copy of the agenda in the office of County Clerk and emailing the agenda to the West Bend Daily News, which is the official newspaper. In addition, the agenda was emailed to CNI newspapers, Express News, Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, and WTKM Radio. The above action is in conformity with the state of Wisconsin's open meeting law. First order of business is consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Mahalik, second by Supervisor Bulloa. Any changes? Seeing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Under personal appearances, presentation Interfaith Caregivers of Washington County. We have a check from the collections at our employee appreciation dinner. $1,520.
Wow, that's really awesome. Carol, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Appreciate this. Can I take this to the bank then?
if you have any,
All right.
did you want to take a picture for a
Yep.
second? Okay.
Sounds good. All right.
Need to say anything or?
Well, I'm just gonna say, we really, really appreciate it. You know, you have a lot of choices. There's a lot of great organizations in the community and, you know, on behalf of all of our seniors that are trying to remain independent in their homes, thank you.
Very good. Next is consideration upon request reading of resolutions and ordinances. Resolution 2018 Resolution 76 authorize the creation of Veteran Services Endowment Fund, authorize the use of $10,000 from the Strategic Goals Fund, and authorize a memorial for those who served in the conflicts of Iraq and Afghanistan.
There's motions up there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Supervisor Basil, Supervisor Sorcy. Sorry.
Okay, well, I don't have a ton to report. I hope you've had a chance to read the committee report and the newspaper article yesterday. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce the committee that we've put together to work on this, pending your approval, of course. County Clerk Ashley Reichert and her husband Justin are part of the committee. Kurt Rush is our Veteran Services Officer, for those of you who don't know Kurt. Jody Westfall-Schulman is my wife. Maureen and Matt Furno, everybody knows Matt, I think. Ethan Hollenberger and Sheriff Schulteis and his wife Shelley as well are all helping to make this happen. So basically what we're looking at over the next couple of months, we're less than 11 weeks now, I reminded everybody at our meeting on Sunday, is trying to put together a 40-mile walk and an event at the end. And all of you will be invited to the event should you approve the resolution before you tonight. And we're working on the details of exactly where it'll be and exactly what it'll look like in 11 weeks, not to mention raising $150,000. But all of that information will be in weekly updates over the next few weeks. We're asking for $10,000 to kind of get us started from the Strategic Goals Fund. If you remember in the budget process, kind of at the bottom line, there was an area for strategic goal implementation. So we're suggesting to take the $10,000 from there. Half of it would be committed towards at least getting the event going and things of that nature. And then our goal would be that the other half would be kind of the first seed money to get that endowment started. So we've already had plenty of interest. We're working on trying to modify the route. I've had a number of people in this room ask me about wanting to walk at least a portion of it. We're trying to look at modifying the route so that can happen at least for a few miles. So it's changing in real time, but we'll keep giving you updates as we go along, again, assuming you vote to approve it. And anybody who is out there who wants to walk all 40 miles with me, I'm sure we can figure out a way to make that happen. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for your interest and support.
Supervisor Mahalik.
My understanding is that normally one of the services that we provide for veterans is the flags and the graves and we allocate or have spent $7,000 a year, so this $10,000 would be the seed money in order to be able to make that something that would actually come off the levy. We would be able to honor our veterans, but in a way that would be self-sustaining. And I just wanted to make sure that that was, again, made aware for those of you who might not have seen the article yesterday, so I would strongly encourage you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is very commendable that Josh took the initiative to get this going. People that are supporting it, we don't get enough support for our veterans, and we truly appreciate what they do. I plan on riding along with Sheriff Schulteis, who's going to follow them, and encourage them all along the way.
Yeah.
So
He's got plenty of room in the back. With bracelets.
okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll take a vote on this. We'll do this electronically.
And while you're doing that, I just want to make sure to thank this group of people up here for helping to make it possible. There's tons of logistics involved in pulling something like this off, so without this group, it wouldn't be possible. So I appreciate the accolades, but this group should get it as much as anybody.
Agreed.
Yep, I haven't pushed vote yet. Now I have.
Thank you
It's
for the
unanimous.
support. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Next order of business is 2018 Resolution 77, the Traffic Safety Analysis Plan. And Highway Commissioner. Oh, we need a motion? Motion, Supervisor Kelling, Supervisor Samisek, sorry. And Scott assures me this is the Cliff Notes version from the
Yes.
Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, County Board. Again, Scott Schmidt, Washington County Highway Commissioner. We did this intersection safety analysis plan for the county. This started well over a year ago. We've had several meetings with the Public Works Committee to kind of define some points. I'll discuss about that as well. But this comes right out of your strategic priorities. So I'm going to got about 8 slides here to go through. In the packet, you have about 163 pages for this intersection plan. So this is the Cliff Notes version, but if you'd like, we can certainly get into more depth and detail of any of those items. And again, as I mentioned, this was a strategic priority by the county board back into 2017, 2019. We looked at they want to do major intersections, look at the traffic safety at that as far as crashes, spatial data, identify the top 10 intersections in the county, give a summary of some best practices for those intersections, get some recommended design improvements, and then follow it up with funding recommendations as well. And so how we actually went about and accomplished that, like I said, we went through and discussed those various things with the Public Works Committee. First thing we had to do was define a major intersection. And so we looked at that going, okay, what is a major intersection? So we said, well, we have 413, let's look at them all. So we decided, bless you. So we decided to look at all 413. Again, we looked at the crash data from 2013 to 2017. Using GIS spatial analysis, 245 of those accidents, so over half had no accidents. Happy to report that. 80 had 1 accident, 27 had 2, and 61 had 3 accidents. And we say county-controlled intersection. That is an intersection that has a county highway associated with another county highway or a local roadway, whether it's subdivision or a town road or a village street or city street. It does not include where a county highway hits a state highway or a U.S. highway. Those are controlled by the higher entity, being the state of Wisconsin. Again, so if you remember, if it's a state highway and county highway, we did not look at those. We looked at county-controlled intersections, the one we can actually control. We also looked at those intersections that up on the screen there are also red. Those are on the county line, attained by another county highway department. I'll pick on the south line there at the bottom of the screen. That's Waukesha. They actually control those intersections, but we help them, and we can make sure that even though they're not under our complete control, we think we have a say for that because they're on our county line. So we want to work with our neighbors on those intersections. The next thing was, well, how do you find a top 10 intersection as far as safety is concerned? We looked at a lot of data, and the experts seem to say, well, there's 3 different categories. You can have just a total number of crashes at the intersection, right? So if the intersection has 20 crashes, that's how many it has. But they figured you should also look at the crash rate, right? So you imagine you have an intersection, you have 10 crashes and 100 cars go through there a day. You have another intersection that has 10 crashes and 100,000 cars going through there per day. You'd much rather have odds of having an accident if you have 10 crashes versus and 100 cars going there a day, right? That's 1 accident per roughly 10 vehicles versus a higher rate, right? So you look at that crash rate, right? How many accidents are there per vehicle going through that particular intersection? So that's kind of what they call as a crash rate. I'm hoping I'm not moving too fast on that, but hopefully you understand that obviously the more cars you have going through an accident, the higher going through an intersection, the higher probability of there being an accident, right? And so that's where we looked at the crash rate formula. We said, okay, that's one thing too, but what about crash severity? So you want to look at intersections that actually have a higher severity rate as well. So what we did was saying, well, how do we incorporate that? So if you have an intersection that's in like a city or a village, just maybe at a 4-way stop, might have a lot of crashes, right? But they might all just be fender benders. So you just want to look at those. You want to look at, okay, maybe you have 73 crashes at an intersection, but there's 30,000 cars there. But maybe there's more fatalities at another intersection or higher damage by the personal property damage or personal injury damage. So what you do is you have that severity index, which is on the right-hand screen. So if you have a fatality at the intersection, that counts towards 10 crashes, right? So you're multiplying it by 10. Fatality equals 10 crashes. If you have an injury, incapacitating injury, it's 8 times 8. And then obviously if it's a non-incapacitating, it's times 4, times 2, times 1 for property damage only. So you're kind of getting a weighted average, right? That you can imagine if you have a fatality there, it actually should count towards 10 accidents. So it's kind of a weighted average. So look at those different categories and said, okay, how do these all rate out? And there was only one that was kind of high in all 3 categories. So we said, well, let's kind of look at the top 4 or 5 in each of those. So instead of looking at top 10, we actually looked at the top 14, if you will, 5 out of most of those categories and 4 out of the crash rate. So we decided to take a look at those. And in your packet, you'll see that we actually have tables in the back that kind of shows every crash rate. So if you want to look at a particular intersection, about midway through or so, you can look at your intersection to see how it kind of compares to other intersections in the area. So we said, well, what are the best practices out there? So we kind of got this whole list. We did actually intersection profiles at each of those 14 intersections, so you should be able to see that in your packet as well. Got a lot of data in there. The important data is the potential causes of those hazards, the potential remedies for those intersections. Then following that page, you'll see a crash reports in our table and graph form. And for those intersections that had roughly 7 or fewer crashes, we actually included the police reports in there, the one-page kind of synopsis, if you will, of what actually happened for those crashes. So you can see that if it was only 1 or 2 crashes, you can see what was the cause of that accident and what did it actually look like, which direction were they heading, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of did a more in-depth analysis at each one of those 14 intersections. And again, those are in your packet. So how do you implement this thing? So we actually started implementing it already at a staff level, talking to our sign guys to get some of those improvements out there. So we got in the report is also a timeline of improvements. We're starting now dealing with local municipalities. You can imagine on County Highway Q down in the Germantown area, quite a few crashes down there. It's also our highest volume of roadway. So we're working with the municipalities down there. They're actually doing re-signalization timing down there. Imagine that the DOT, Menominee Falls, and Germantown all have signals along that stretch. they don't talk to each other down there. They're actually doing a fiber optic between those traffic signals to actually make sure they're all talking. So hopefully that'll eliminate a lot of those crashes, those rear end crashes that are down there, because the traffic will be able to flow through there a little bit better. So, and we also provided some of these intersections to our sign guys. Our paint crew will be up to speed on this pretty soon. All those kind of easier implementation things that we can accomplish. But obviously you have to monitor these things as well. Are they actually working? Federal Highway says you do the implementation and you wait about 3 years to see if your improvements are actually working. So during that time frame, we'll be monitoring these intersections as well as updating the plan as well. Looking at every 2 years updating the plan, as well as looking at new intersections, right? Taking that data from 2013 to 2017, updating that to 2014 to 2018 to take in the new crashes and see, is there a problem going in some other direction, some other intersection? So be looking at this as far as keeping this plan as a live plan moving forward. And then, of course, funding. You'll see in there a lot of the funding we have in there. We're using cost-effective controls, signing, lighting, painting, those kind of things, making sure vision triangles are cleaned off. All that kind of stuff is kind of your cost-effective controls before doing major controls for those intersections. We'll be able to use our maintenance fund for the county road and bridge aid for most of those projects that we're looking at. There's potential for state and federal grants as far as looking at maybe a roundabout at one of those intersections. Again, I mentioned earlier, working with Menominee Falls, Germantown, and DOT and Highway Q, but collaborating with other municipalities too to make sure there's stop-ahead signs in the right location. Should they have dual stop-ahead signs? Should they have flags on those? All that kind of stuff, reflective strips on there. So looking at all those requirements, the flashing stop signs that you've seen around the area. And then, of course, if there's additional funding required, that would be done as part of our normal budget process. So we're not looking at additional funding right now for this plan. We're looking at doing a lot of stuff in-house and working with our local municipalities to actually, get this plan rolling. So with that, I did forget the one thing I wanted to mention too is we also looked at intersections that are growing in size, the ones that are 7,500 larger vehicles, 7,500 cars per day or larger, looking at how are those controlled right now? Are they a two-way stop, four-way stop, roundabout, traffic signals, and which ones should we be looking at those in the future? And you'll see that that's in your packet as well. So not just looking at just the intersection safety, taking that as part of a component of that certainly, but also looking at where are those intersections potentially using our 2050 plan and sewer packs projected data, looking at which ones we know in the future might have to have some control improvements up there, going to a four-way stop, roundabout, traffic signals, that kind of stuff. So lastly, and this is my last slide, acknowledgements. I really want to give a lot of credit out here to Josh Glass. He's our project technician in the Highway Department, put a lot of work and effort into this. Michael Vandersanden in our GIS and our IT department did a fantastic job. All the geospatial analysis that you see in there, couldn't have done that without him. The Sheriff's Department as well, giving their 2 cents on some of these intersections that we're looking at. Sewer pack, a lot of those maps that you see in there as far as they went through every one of those 14 intersections and created those maps and diagrams for us at no cost. I know we do pay sewer pack, but at no cost to them. They looked at that. The DOT looked at all of our recommendations and sat down with us going, yes, that makes sense. Oh, did you think of this? So they went through each one of those intersections as well to get another look at that, kind of a different perspective. So their safety engineer and their regional traffic region traffic and design engineer as well. So this is not a one-person accomplishment. This was a year-long task in about 10 minutes here of time. But as you can see in the document, it's something that we're really proud of, and we appreciate the opportunity to look at this and to actually formulate a good plan for the citizens of our county and those passing through our county to make sure they travel through safely. So with that, I know that was relatively quick, and maybe I talked too fast, and hopefully not. But if you have any questions or comments, we certainly can address those.
Supervisor Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to say thank you to Scott and his crew. So this is the first time they created this from nothing.
Yes.
So it's a heck of a report. There's a lot of information that I think will be used from here on out, as long as we keep updating it, and it'll be a great resource in the future. So thank you very much for
Thank you. Yes,
doing that.
we presented this to our Traffic Safety Commission, and one of our regional directors had commented about he might want to do us a presentation on this, potentially at the governor's conference, so he's going to look at that too. So he was saying, he goes around the states, and he was very, very impressed with this report that we put together.
Supervisor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. This looks like a well-done piece of work that you folks have all been working on. The one thing I didn't notice in there, and maybe I overlooked it, if I did, I apologize, but some of these things that you're speaking of are very costly. You and I have already had a discussion as to the cost of a traffic circle, where you quoted somewhere between $1.5 million and $2.5 million for a traffic circle.
Yep.
Which
It's in there.
still surprises me. But I wonder if you did, and I presume you did, but I'm just verifying this, a cost-benefit analysis on these different intersections, because obviously, for the cost of one traffic circle, you can put a whole host of different types of control mechanisms in, stoplights, stop signs, illuminated stop signs, all kinds of things like that, for the cost of one traffic circle. And so, did you do that? I'm assuming you did.
Yes,
but
and that's why we started off with the more simplistic approach, signage, cutting trees down, limbs down, that kind of stuff, painting. Do that first before we do some major improvements to the intersection. The one that you're referring to, the intersection of Q and Hillside, has come before our Traffic Safety Commission many times in the past 3 years since I've been Highway Commissioner. We looked at that intersection and dealing with the state, these two individuals with the state, believe it might be eligible for federal funding, which is 90% federal funding, so you'll see that in your packet. So that's one thing we're looking at right now, is having an outside engineering firm look at that intersection and doing that cost-benefit analysis. That's part of the grant application, if you will, for that intersection. So there'll be a lot more in-depth for that particular one. But we're looking at, compared to other intersections that had roundabouts through this Highway Safety Improvement Program, HISIP it's called, funding, that we rank a lot higher than them. And so we'll definitely be applying for that, most likely in August. That'll be coming back to the Public Works Committee at some point this year. So yes, there's definitely cost-benefit analysis. That's why you see the cost. If you look at the funding page on that, they're all relatively minor costs right now. And that's where we want to start off an intersection to see if those minor costs work first, right? Putting up the dual stop ahead signs, putting up the stop signs at the intersection, maybe the flashing stop sign. Do those small little improvements first before you go, full on out and make major changes at the intersection. So,
thank you very much.
Supervisor Krebs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a great report, Scott. And I know you got to draw the line somewhere on the scope of it and stuff, but can you think, are there any sections of roadway where, it's more of a curve or just a section of road that could even be comparable to some of these intersections for
Sure,
safety, or, at some point would it pay to integrate, sections of road in that are just known bad areas?
Yes, I thought maybe that might come out of that room from earlier today, maybe. So that's one thing that the Traffic Safety Commission actually looks at all the crashes. We actually plot those out and look for those areas. For instance, you just approved County Highway D between Nano Road and the tracks up in the town of Wayne. That's one of those areas that you identified as areas that we can look at those maps. So we actually do those hotspot maps every year. The Traffic Safety Commission looks at those maps, and those are actually available on our county's website as well. So if you want to take a look at those, that's out there as well. But that's something that Traffic Safety Commission looks at, the stretch of roadways, to see if there's an issue in a certain area. And that's where the Highway D one came up. So if you look at that map, the amount of accidents that are in that area versus the mile stretch of roadway is an incredibly high percentage. But it's something that we could utilize our GIS now that we have the information and come up with they have actually a rate of crashes per mile of roadway. And so you can see if you're above that state average or below that state average. And if you looked in the report, the state average is compared to Minnesota because our DOT doesn't have a state average. And so everything we're doing in there is kind of comparing ourselves to intersections in the state of Minnesota, unfortunately.
Okay.
But at least it's a comparison. It's a relatively similar state as far as weather conditions and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Bertram?
Yes, Scott, I agree with my colleague here. It's a great report. Rumble strips, I didn't hear anything about those. I hate them, and my dog really hates them. If you put my dog in the car and go across rumble strips,
Yes.
man, you better look out. That guy goes crazy, but I think they're great. They're great from the standpoint, how do you miss them?
Right.
You can miss a stop sign, you can miss color coding, you can miss paint, but you don't miss those rumble strips.
Yes, so if you look closely, rumble strips is one of the things on County Highway G in Pleasant Valley, because we have traffic that comes towards Groves Highway G in Pleasant Valley that doesn't stop. So that is one of the recommendations in there. We're looking at some other recommendations first. That would have to be installed by the town of Jackson. So that is a recommendation that was in one of the things, was to potentially install rumble strips. But again, we want to try other things first before, they are a little bit of a nuisance, if you will, to the local residents. And so we try to do the other things first. But that is one of those low-cost examples of relatively inexpensive to put some rumble strips in. But that was listed under that one where we thought it was relevant. So where we thought it was relevant, it is in there.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we can vote on this electronically. You ready? Motion passes unanimously. Thanks again, Scott. Great job. 2018 Ordinance 17, Washington County Staffing Plan, Highway Department, Transit Services, Washington County Classification Compensation Plan 702 and 703. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Hartwig, Supervisor Kist.
In the interest of giving you the opportunity to get out of here faster than I think I've ever seen you get out, I'll just ask if there are any questions.
Supervisor Martin.
Just can you tell me, I don't know who would be the one, what the advantage is to the county? I know dollars are one thing, but the advantage to the county to going from a manager to a superintendent.
Yes, so the move, the actual ordinance change that we're making today is really the first step towards a shared position, first of all, with Ozaukee County, so we can have one person, potentially in the future, an additional part-time person to help that individual. So it's a higher level management position, number one. Number two, because it'll be two systems and a supervisory position. And then number two, the longer game. This is the second time this has come up. It was part of the strategic priorities document as well. So this is working towards achieving the strategic goal. We feel the only way to really be able to do this is to have one person, similar to how we did with public health. It's one person who's hired to basically lead both divisions and then start to put together the pieces of the process for what it's actually going to take if you're going to do it. So this first step is a shared position. If at some point we decide mutually or otherwise that we need to back off, we could very easily back off of the shared position. The next step in the process will actually be having this individual come along, take the work that Sewer PAC already did back in 2017, and then basically do an analysis for what the shared service might look like if we decide to go past the position. That'll come back to the Public Works Committee. If the Public Works Committee blesses it, it'll come ultimately to the county board. So it's kind of trying to foresee what's going to happen in the future. First, it is somebody managing two divisions, so we're recognizing that by elevating the position. And then second, we expect over the long term it'll turn into something entirely different.
So you were talking about perhaps in the future be a part-time added into this. So I'm just, by the money that we're saving and adding another position to do the job, is that saving us money or not? Or will it?
When Sewer PAC did the analysis back in 2017, their preliminary analysis said that they didn't. If we do save money, it'll be in the thousands, not the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So really, this is aimed at getting the two systems to work together, so that one person is looking at it holistically, and then ultimately creating efficiencies by the economies of scale. There might be savings. I'm recalling back to 2017, so Supervisor Bolo, if I missed something, I know you were at that meeting. There might be savings in economies of scale in buying vehicles and efficiencies in route patterns. Mostly, this is a citizen service driven issue, not a money-saving issue. Could save us some money, but primarily right now, if you're, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, but for anybody who's not, if you're in the town of Erin and you need to get over to Columbia St. Mary's in Mequon, and your only way to get there, interfaith caregivers can't give you a ride, the only way to get there is a shared ride taxi. You need to take the Washington County shared ride taxi to the county line, get out, wait for the Ozaki County shared ride taxi to pick you up, to take you to the hospital, turn around and redo everything to get back to Erin. So ultimately, the plan is aimed at not saving money. It may, but first and foremost, cleaning that up. And because of the way we've established it, that is a problem.
There cannot be an agreement between the two counties to use both services?
That is certainly an option. We're hoping that this individual can help us analyze that. Sewer PAC did not go that far, partially because both committees voted 2-2, and that killed it. So they will look at that as an option. The trouble with doing that today is when the Washington County vehicle crosses the county line, once they get, we'll just use the example again of Columbia St. Mary's, everything from Columbia St. Mary's back is deadhead. So we lose money, or we're not making money in that deadhead time. As of right now, inside the borders of the county, they can typically figure out how to make their routes most efficient and not have so much deadhead or lost revenue. So it's possible that we could do it. We believe that there's greater efficiency if we can find a way to work together, and Sewer PAC indicated that they believe that as well.
Thank you.
And basically, like Administrator Schoen said, it's a service to our community. People who use shared ride taxi are the neediest of our citizens. And if you're gonna be dropped off at the county line, you're in a wheelchair, you're not mobile, you're not ambulatory, and then you have to wait regardless of the weather. So in order for us to really provide a good service for our community, I think this is an excellent way to go about it. So, Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you. Just to expand on that, I'm going to use a little bit more commercial rather than healthcare. If you have a group, and I'm just throwing this out of speculation regarding services that could be, if you had a group of individuals, say from Erin or Hartford or wherever, that was looking to go to the Costco, you can go to the one in Waukesha County, or you can go to the one in Ozaki County in Grafton. There would be then the possibility of working something out where you might even be able to have something of a route using a share ride taxi model to take 4, 5, 6 people,
Yes.
Especially from some of the assisted living or the senior center types. Location to go there. I guess that's where I see the advantage, and wanted to know if that would be something that could be looked at by a new person, or if we're constrained by the rules of what a shared ride taxi is.
So that's a great example. So we have minibuses now that hold multiple people, and Grafton's a wonderful example because not only does it have Costco, but it has a number of commercial entities.
Correct.
And Aurora happens to be right down the block.
Well,
So it may work out. I don't think it's a stretch to say we could actually have people from Washington County, multiple, maybe 5 or 6 people in a van that are going over for exactly that purpose. One gets dropped off at the hospital, another at Costco, another at Best Buy, wherever else. And then they'll be able to be picked up at the same time and brought back.
On a personal level, I just assume that Aurora expand its services in Hartford rather than having to drive them.
I read that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this electronically. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next meeting date, April 10th, 2019, 6:00 PM. Hereby adjourned.